Hey everyone, ready to dive into something both captivating and a little unnerving. We're talking about the chosen ones. You know, those figures, those individuals who just have this presence about them, almost otherworldly, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew.
hmm
The text we're looking at calls them the chosen ones, but it's not your typical superhero thing.
Right.
It gets deeper than that. Imagine a gaze so potent, so insightful, it's like they see right through you, revealing truths you might not even be aware of yourself.
Wow. Yeah.
And to help us unpack all of this, well, I've got an expert with us today. Their insights into, well, the psychology of belief systems are going to be invaluable. Welcome to the deep dive.
It's fascinating. This whole idea of a chosen one, it pops up everywhere, across cultures, throughout history, really makes you think like it taps into something very deep within us. Desires, anxieties, the inherent need to believe there's more to the world than what we see on the surface.
Oh, this text definitely leans into that. It describes these chosen ones as having these extraordinary eyes. They're called a divine lens, and they can see into your very soul. Like they're conduits of divine energy. And their gaze, it's so intense. The text says it can expose those hidden aspects of ourselves, even the demons we try to keep tucked away.
hmm
I don't know about you, but this whole seeing into my soul thing, well, it's intriguing, but it also makes me a little nervous. What is it about being truly seen that's both so alluring and so unsettling?
You've hit on something really important there. We crave that deep connection, that feeling of being truly seen and understood, but it also makes us incredibly vulnerable. The text even suggests that the discomfort we feel around a chosen one, well, it's often a reflection of our own inner conflicts, the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden.
So it's not just about their power, it's about what their presence forces us to confront within ourselves. That's a fascinating dynamic.
Exactly. Think about a time when someone's honesty made you confront your own tendency to gossip, for example. Their chosen one quality, in that case, is really just an amplified reflection of a value you haven't fully embraced in yourself.
Okay, that's a really interesting way to look at it.
And it makes you wonder, if our reactions to these individuals are more about us than about them, what does that say about our own beliefs and insecurities?
Now that is a deep question. Speaking of deep, the text doesn't just focus on this inner turmoil. It also highlights how chosen ones, just by seeing the world differently, can end up shaking things up on a much larger scale. They become these disruptors of the status quo.
That's right. The text even mentions how certain individuals, those who rely on manipulation or keeping others in the dark, they can feel threatened by chosen ones, almost like they recognize maybe subconsciously that their usual tactics won't work on someone who sees through those facades.
It's like a supernatural thriller, where the villain can sense their powers are useless. But this makes me think these chosen ones, they can't just be passive observers with remarkable eyesight. The text seems to suggest they have a more active role to play in challenging the way things are.
Absolutely. This challenging of norms, this disruption, it's often tied to their ability to see the world through a different lens. The text calls it a spiritual lens. They recognize truths that others might miss, and their presence often acts as a catalyst. Those around them start questioning things too.
Which can be a good thing or a scary thing, depending on what you're comfortable with
Yeah,
and who you ask.
precisely. The text even goes so far as to say that manipulators will shrink back from the aura of the chosen ones. Like they can sense, they're out of their league. And it's not just about recognizing the good either. The text talks about these individuals being able to perceive the hidden demons, the restless spirits within others, those shadow aspects we all carry.
Okay, now that's both incredibly insightful and a little unnerving. I mean, being able to see someone's true intentions, their hidden darkness, that's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's a double-edged sword. Because once you start questioning the narratives that hold society together, once you see through those carefully constructed facades, there's no going back. It's like choosing to see reality even if it's uncomfortable. And the text suggests not everyone is ready for that.
It's that moment of truth, right? Taking the proverbial red pill and seeing reality as it is, even if it's not always pretty. But before we get too far down that rabbit hole, let's take a step back. Make sure we're really defining what we mean by chosen ones. It can't just be about having really intense eyes, right?
You're right. The text uses phrases like divine brilliance, spiritual vigor. It paints this picture of individuals who are not only deeply connected to their spirituality, but also incredibly self-assured, fearless even. They have this unwavering certainty in their purpose, a knowing that they're supported by something larger than themselves.
Which I imagine is both empowering and potentially isolating. If you're walking a path that most people don't understand, let alone agree with, it takes a certain kind of inner fortitude to stay the course.
Exactly. And the text touches on that internal struggle. It describes the chosen ones as guardians of truth, tasked with exposing hidden motives, leading others back to divine wisdom.
So it's not just about seeing the truth, but about speaking it, about actively challenging the darkness. That sounds like a heavy burden to carry.
It can be. The text compares these individuals to lions,
Yeah.
bold, strong, willing to stand alone if necessary. There's a sense of both immense power and potential sacrifice woven into this archetype, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It seems like true authenticity, true courage can be unsettling for those who haven't quite found that same strength within themselves.
And the text even describes how this energy, it can be so strong it changes how people interact with them. It mentions how direct conversation with a chosen one can be too intense for some people. They resort to communicating through messages instead. I find that so interesting.
It's like their very presence is a catalyst for change, even if it's just in the way people choose to communicate with them. But this all begs the question, why? Why are these individuals chosen in the first place? What's their purpose in the grand scheme of things?
That's where it gets really interesting, because according to this text, this chosenness, it's not just about personal power, it's about responsibility.
Responsibility
To help others awaken to their own potential, to challenge the narratives that keep us small and afraid. The text even talks about facing persecution, slander, and deceit. It's all part of the deal. These individuals, they're often the first to see the cracks in the facade, and they're rarely afraid to point them out, even if it means making enemies along the way.
So it's not a role for the faint of heart. You have to have the courage of your convictions, the willingness to speak your truth even when it's unpopular, and the resilience to withstand the inevitable backlash.
And that's where things can get tricky. The text mentions something called the adversary, seems to refer to some kind of spiritual opposition. And it seeks to keep the chosen ones inactive, to tempt them with things like arrogance and pride.
So the very qualities that might make them effective, the confidence, the unwavering belief, can also be their downfall if they're not careful.
It's a classic hero's journey, isn't it? The potential for greatness, it often exists alongside the potential for a spectacular fall. But there's also this sense that these individuals aren't meant to walk this path alone. The text talks about the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals, people who resonate with spiritual truths and will support you even when things get messy.
Makes you wonder, who are the people who support these individuals who dare to challenge the norm? What kind of strength does it take to stand with them?
I think those are questions we all need to ask ourselves. Because if we're truly drawn to this idea of chosen ones, it's worth exploring what that attraction reveals about our own desire for change, our own longing for authenticity, both in ourselves and in the world around us.
It's like this text presents chosen ones as not just these individuals, but as part of a bigger picture, a larger dynamic. We've been talking about the challenges they face from within and from others who might feel threatened, but it also makes you wonder about the ripple effects. If these people are really here to shake things up, to challenge how things are, what does that mean for everyone else?
That's a really insightful point. The text talks about how the chosen ones can act as these almost like pivotal guides, helping us confront our own shadows, see the world as more clarity. It's like their presence creates an opening for collective awakening, even if it's not always comfortable.
Right, like they're holding up this mirror to society, and we're forced to confront not just our own individual darkness, but also the systems, the structures that might be keeping us trapped in these cycles of ignorance or complacency. Makes me think of those figures throughout history, the ones who dared to challenge the norms of their time. They faced resistance, persecution even, but they paved the way for progress.
Absolutely. And the texts connect this idea of disruption to the act of seeing differently. It's not just about having good eyesight, but about perceiving the world through a different lens, that spiritual lens we talked about earlier, recognizing truth that others might miss. And what's fascinating is that this seeing, it's not passive. It has this active, transformative quality to it.
So it's not just about what they see, it's about how their vision inspires others to open their own eyes as well. That's pretty powerful.
It is. The text describes their vision as sharp, like an eagle's, imbued with profound spiritual insight. And again, it's not just about seeing the good, it's about seeing through the facades, exposing those hidden shadows, challenging the narratives that keep us divided, disconnected from our true nature.
Which, let's be honest, not everyone is going to be thrilled about. It's just human nature to want to protect your worldview, even if it's built on shaky ground.
Of course. It's much easier to just go along with the crowd, accept the status quo, than to question everything you thought you knew. But this text argues that real growth, true growth, requires you to step outside of that comfort zone, to embrace the discomfort of being truly seen, and to be open to the possibility that what you discover might challenge everything you thought you believed.
It's that matrix moment, right? The red pill. Seeing reality as it is, even if it's not always pretty. But according to this text, not everyone is ready for that kind of awakening.
Exactly. Talks about how this divine brilliance, this potent energy, the chosen ones embody, it can be too much for some people, too intense. They would rather look away than confront the truths it reveals.
And I think we all do that sometimes, right? Avoid the uncomfortable truth, look away from the things that challenge us. But this text seems to suggest that it's in those moments of discomfort, those moments when we're forced to confront something we'd rather ignore, that's where real growth can happen.
I agree. There's that saying, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. The presence of these chosen ones, it can be a catalyst for that kind of liberation, even if it comes at a cost.
It makes you think about the cost of not changing, clinging to outdated beliefs, systems that no longer serve us. Maybe that's part of their role, these chosen ones, to shake things up enough that we're forced to reevaluate, to figure out what truly matters.
That's an interesting perspective, and it ties into something else the text mentions, the importance of personal boundaries. Even those who resonate with the chosen ones, who are inspired by their courage, their clarity, they need to be mindful of their own well-being too.
So it's not about blindly following someone else. It's about finding your own path to truth.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the difference between genuine guidance and unhealthy dependence. The text specifically talks about establishing strong personal boundaries. Even when you're dealing with someone who seems to have this direct line to divine wisdom, it's easy to get caught up in their energy, their journey, and lose sight of your own.
Which can lead to all sorts of problems.
It can. And that's an important point to make, I think. Especially in spiritual circles, there's this tendency to put certain individuals on a pedestal, see them as these infallible gurus.
And we've seen how dangerous that can be throughout history, even in our own time.
Precisely. So while the text definitely reveres these chosen ones, it also emphasizes that they are still human. They're subject to the same temptations, the same pitfalls as the rest of us. They might have extraordinary abilities, a powerful connection to something greater, but they're not exempt from the human experience.
Which I imagine makes their courage and willingness to speak their truth even more impressive.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of discernment. Just because someone says they're a chosen one doesn't make it true. And even if they are, it doesn't mean we should just blindly follow everything they say. The text encourages us to use our own judgment, to listen to our gut, our intuition, to trust that inner guidance, even as we remain open to learning from others.
That's a really empowering message, especially in a world that can feel so chaotic, so confusing. It's like saying, look, there are people out there who might have a clearer vision, a stronger connection to truth, but your journey is your own. You have everything you need within you to find your way.
Beautifully said. It's about finding that balance between reverence and discernment, between being open to guidance, but trusting your own inner wisdom. Because ultimately, the journey of awakening, of stepping into your own power, your own purpose, that's something you have to do for yourself. No one, not even a chosen one, can do that work for you.
That is a powerful thought. And it makes me think about something else the text mentions. This idea that the adversary or whatever force is opposing these chosen ones, it doesn't want them to succeed. It wants to keep them quiet, to dim their light, because their very existence is a threat.
That's right. The text uses some strong language to describe those who oppose the chosen ones, calling them hyenas, saying they choose conformity and fear over standing up for what's right. It paints a pretty clear picture of what's at stake here. The potential for conflict between those who cling to the old ways and those who embrace a new vision.
It's like this epic battle, light and darkness playing out on the stage of human consciousness. But it's not just happening out there in the world, is it? It's happening within each of us as well.
Exactly. The text emphasizes that internal struggle, too, the battle between doubt and faith, between wanting to conform and having the courage to embrace your own unique path. And those internal battles, they could be just as fierce, if not more so, than any external opposition you might face.
Because it takes real inner strength to resist that urge to conform, to stay true to yourself when it's uncomfortable, even especially when it means going against the grain.
It does. And I think that's the true test of a chosen one. It's not about superpowers or special abilities. It's about that unwavering commitment to your purpose. the willingness to stand in your truth, even when it's hard, when you feel alone.
Which brings us back to that idea of community. Finding like-minded individuals, people who can support you on your journey.
Yes, the text really emphasizes that. Surrounding yourself with people who get it, who resonate with your values, who encourage your growth, people who will be there for you when you stumble. Because let's face it, the path of awakening is rarely a straight line.
Absolutely. There are going to be times when you doubt yourself, when you question everything.
Yeah.
Having that supportive community, it can make all the difference.
It really can. The text talks about how these like-minded individuals, they act like mirrors, reflecting your own strength, your own potential, even when you can't see it yourself, reminding you of your purpose, your inherent worthiness, helping you stay true even when it's tough.
So it's like having a team of cheerleaders, but instead of pom-poms, they come armed with wisdom, compassion, and maybe a good cup of tea.
Exactly. And that kind of support is invaluable.
Yeah.
Whether you're a chosen one or just someone trying to figure things out, navigate this thing we call life. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together.
That's a beautiful thought and makes me think about how this whole concept of chosen ones, it's not just some abstract idea, it's something that plays out in our everyday lives. We've all met someone at some point who just seems to have that certain something, that spark of, I don't know, divinity that makes you question, that challenges you, that ultimately helps you grow.
Absolutely. And the text encourages us to pay attention to those encounters. Notice how we react to the people who seem to embody this chosen one archetype. What do they bring up for us? What fears, what insecurities, what longings?
Because those reactions, they can be really telling. They can tell us a lot about ourselves, about the work we still need to do, the parts of ourselves we might be afraid to embrace.
Precisely. And this is where the text gets really practical. It doesn't just leave us with these big ideas about chosen ones and spiritual awakening. It actually offers some concrete steps, things we can do to cultivate that inner chosenness within ourselves.
Okay, I am all ears. What are some of the things the text suggests we can do to step more fully into our own power, our own purpose?
Well, one of the big ones is listening to your intuition, that inner voice, the one that already knows what's true for you, even when the rest of the world is telling you something different.
You mean that gut feeling, the one we often ignore because it's not logical, not practical.
Exactly. The text calls it divine guidance. It encourages us to cultivate a stronger connection to that inner wisdom. It also talks about setting healthy boundaries, which we touched on before, but it's worth repeating.
Especially in a world that's constantly telling you who you should be, what you should want.
Absolutely. It's about having the courage to say no to the things that drain you, the things that no longer serve you, even if it means disappointing other people or going against the grain.
So becoming more discerning, both in terms of who you let into your life and what you allow to influence you, your thoughts, your actions.
Exactly. And that discernment, it requires self-awareness, a willingness to really examine your own beliefs, your behaviors, to be honest about how you might be contributing to your own suffering.
Which, let's be real, is not always fun or easy. It's much easier to point fingers, blame circumstances, other people, than to look inward and take responsibility for the choices you're making.
It is easier. But this text suggests that true freedom, true empowerment, comes from recognizing the power you have, the power to shape your own reality. It's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the messiness, the imperfection, the journey.
It's about becoming the hero of your own story, right? Facing your own dragons, learning from your mistakes, and through it all, becoming more fully yourself.
Beautifully said. And recognizing that you don't have to do it alone. Just like the chosen ones in this text, we can all use a little support. Find those like-minded individuals, those who will encourage us, inspire us along the way.
People who remind us of our own inner chosen one, even when we forget.
Exactly. Create that circle of support, a community where you can be honest about your struggles, celebrate your victories, remind each other of your inherent worthiness.
And maybe, just maybe, by doing that inner work, by embracing your own chosenness, you become part of something bigger, part of a collective awakening that can actually change the world.
What a powerful thought. That the journey of self-discovery isn't just about you. It's about creating a ripple effect, inspiring and uplifting others.
It's like we're all in this play, this grand cosmic play, and we get to choose our roles. Do we cling to the old script? Or do we embrace the unknown and step into a new narrative, one that really resonates with who we are?
I like that. That's a great analogy. And this text, it kind of hints at the idea that it's the chosen ones, those who are already on that journey, who can light the way for the rest of us, those of us still figuring things out.
It really makes you think about those moments, those times in your own life when you've crossed paths with someone like that, someone who challenged how you see things, inspired you to think differently, or maybe just made you feel more alive, you know?
It's about recognizing that those moments, they're not just random, they're opportunities. Opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
It's like the universe is sending us these, I don't know, messengers, guides to help us remember who we really are, what we're truly capable of.
You know, it's funny because earlier we were talking about the dangers of putting chosen ones on a pedestal, like making them into these perfect gurus. But this feels different. It's not about following blindly. It's about recognizing how their journey, their experiences can inspire our own.
Exactly. The text encourages us to, like, really pay attention. How do we react to these individuals? What do they bring up for us? What fears, insecurities? What's that longing we feel?
Because those reactions, they can be so telling. They can reveal a lot about where we are in our own journey, the work we still need to do, the parts of ourselves we might be shying away from.
Right. And this is where the text gets really practical. It doesn't just leave us with these big, abstract ideas about chosen ones and spiritual awakenings. It gives us actual steps we can take.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What kind of steps are we talking about? What does the text suggest we can do to really step into our own power, our own unique purpose?
Well, big one is learning to listen to your intuition, that inner voice, the one that just knows, even when everything else, the whole outside world, is telling you something different.
You mean that gut feeling? The one we often try to ignore because it doesn't seem rational or make sense.
Exactly. It calls it divine guidance. And it encourages us to cultivate that, to strengthen that connection to our inner wisdom. It also talks about setting healthy boundaries, which, we touched on it earlier, but it's important.
Especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with messages about who we should be, what we should want.
Exactly. It's about having that courage to say no to the things that drain us, the things that aren't serving us anymore, even if it means we disappoint someone or go against the grain.
So it's about discernment, being more discerning, not just with who we let into our lives, but with the things we allow to influence us, right? Our thoughts, our choices.
Exactly. And that kind of discernment, it takes self-awareness. Being willing to really look at your own beliefs, your behaviors, to be honest with yourself, even if it's uncomfortable, about how you might be contributing to your own suffering.
And let's be honest, that's not always easy to do. It's much easier to blame things outside of ourselves.
Right.
Point the finger at circumstances, other people, anything but look in the mirror.
It is easier. But the text suggests that real freedom, real empowerment, it comes from recognizing that we have power. We have the power to shape our reality. And it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the journey, the messy, imperfect journey of growth and self-discovery.
It's about becoming the hero of your own story, facing your dragons, learning from your stumbles, and becoming more fully yourself along the way.
Beautifully said. And remembering that we don't have to do it all alone. Just like the chosen ones in the text, we all need support. Finding those like-minded individuals, the ones who will encourage us, inspire us as we walk our paths.
The people who remind us of our own inner chosen one, especially when we forget.
Exactly. Create that circle of support, a community where you can be real, be honest about what you're struggling with, celebrate the wins, and remind each other, lift each other up.
And maybe, just maybe, in doing that inner work, by really embracing our own chosenness, we become part of something much bigger than ourselves, part of this collective awakening. And that's what has the power to change the world.
That's a powerful thought to sit with. That idea that the journey of self-discovery, it's not just about personal fulfillment. It ripples outward. It has the potential to inspire and uplift so many others.
It's like that quote, I think it's Marianne Williamson. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. And maybe that's the true legacy, the real gift of these chosen ones, to remind us that we all have that power within us, the power to create a brighter future.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that spark of, well, divinity that exists within each of us.
Yeah.
And fanning that flame, not just for ourselves, but for everyone.
I love that. And to all our listeners out there, if you've ever felt drawn to this idea of chosen ones, if their stories resonate with you on a deeper level, ask yourself, what if you are the chosen one you've been waiting for? What truths are you ready to see? And what actions are you being called to take? A huge thank you to our expert for today for shedding light on this fascinating and often overlooked aspect of what it means to be human. And to you, our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep exploring. Explore the depths within you and all around you.